The Case of the Missing Toys. Hello, I'm Jay Nicoll of Nicoll Investigations, and this is an Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Fictional episode of Whodunit Wednesdays. Go back to the golden era of detective fiction and enjoy stories in the tradition of the greats of writing. From Agatha Christie to Raymond Chandler to John Creasy. These are short stories I hope you enjoy. Today we bring you the debut episode of the Mick and Mack mysteries. The Case of the Missing Toys. Toronto, December 1945. Snow swirled gently down from the grey December sky, blanketing the streets of Toronto in a powdery white sheen. The city sparkled with holiday cheer, the grand Christmas displays in the windows of Eaton's and Simpson's, to the bustling markets filled with shoppers searching for last-minute gifts. Children pressed their noses against frosted glass, marveling at Eaton's famous window displays, miniature scenes of elves working in Santa's workshop, and a model train weaving through a snow-covered village. The air was thick with the scent of roasted chestnuts and the joyful strains of carolers echoing down Yonge Street. Inside Toronto Police Headquarters, Detectives Adolphus Mick McCathie and Archie Mac MacNeely sat in their shared office. Mick, tall and wiry with a face that always seemed locked in concentration, flipped through an old case file. Mac, broader and more easygoing, leaned back in his chair, tossing a rubber ball against the wall. "Do you ever stop fidgeting?" Mick asked, glancing up. Mac grinned. "Keeps me sharp. Anyway, shouldn't we be out in the snow catching real criminals? Instead of going over the Henderson case for the 5th time?" Before Mick could reply, the door burst open, and Chief Bernard Stewart's commanding voice filled the room. "You two, my office, now!" Bernie Stewart had been a fixture of the Toronto Police Force for decades. A decorated officer from the old school, he'd risen to chief of detectives through a mix of hard work, sharp instincts, and an ability to manage the political minefield of the department. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man with piercing eyes that seemed to size you up in a heartbeat. To Mick and Mack, he was a firm but fair mentor who occasionally played referee to their contrasting styles. "What do we do now?" Mick muttered as they stood. "Let's find out," Mick replied, leading the way. In Stewart's office, the chief gestured for them to sit. The large windows behind his desk framed a view of the city, now coated in a pristine layer of snow. Stewart wasted no time. "We've got a problem. Eaton's just reported the theft of a large shipment of toys. Donations for the Victoria Hospital for sick children. Over 200 gifts. Christmas is in 4 days, and the press is already sniffing around. I need you two on this immediately." "Toys," Max said, leaning back in his chair. "Doesn't sound like a case for Toronto's finest." "It does when the public's watching," Stewart snapped. "Last thing we need is a headline about stolen toys and useless detectives. This is a goodwill case, gentlemen. Fix it." Mick, always one to read the room, nodded. "We're on it. Anything from Eaton Security?" "Nothing useful. Check the loading docks first. And don't let this turn into one of your adventures." Stewart gave Mac a pointed look. "Adventures? Us?" Mac said with mock innocence as he stood to leave. Stewart's expression softened just a fraction. "Just find those toys." The Eaton's warehouse on Yonge Street was a flurry of activity. Workers bundled in coats moved pallets of goods under the flickering glow of industrial lights. A faint scent of pine and cinnamon drifted in from the storefront, contrasting with the cold metallic air of the loading docks. Foreman Bill Hargrove, a stocky man with a no-nonsense demeanor, met them near the crime scene. "We found the lock busted this morning," he said, pointing to the broken padlock hanging from the door. 2 crates of toys. Gone. Security didn't hear a thing." Mick crouched by the shattered lock, running his fingers along the clean cut. Bolt cutters. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. Nearby, Mac examined a set of footprints in the snow leading away from the dock. Looked like they had help. One set of big boots, another lighter, maybe a lookout. Hargrove handed them a clipboard. "Here's the inventory for what was taken, and if you find those punks, Tell them they're ruining Christmas for a lot of kids. We'll see what we can do, Mick said, tucking the clipboard under his arm. Thanks, Bill. Their next stop was Rosie Red's DeLuca's bar, a smoky dive on Queen Street, frequented by everyone from dock workers to low-level crooks. The warmth of the bar, tinged with the scent of whiskey and pine, offered a welcome reprieve from the cold outside. Rosie, a sharp-tongued woman with an ever-present smirk, leaned against the counter, polishing a glass as the detectives approached. Well, well, it isn't my two favorite flatfoots. What brings you here? Or should I ask who? Mac leaned casually against the bar. Just the holiday spirit, Rosie. Maybe a little information about some misplaced toys. Rosie raised an eyebrow. Misplaced? That's a fancy word for stolen. Funny you should ask. Heard about a guy down in Kensington trying to offload a suspicious amount of dollhouses. Could be unrelated, but you two love a wild goose chase. Mick tipped his hat. Thanks, Rosie. Drinks are on us next time. I'll believe it when I see it, she shot back with a smirk. Kensington Market was a hive of activity despite the snow. Vendors called out to passerby, their stalls overflowing with fresh produce, clothing, and holiday trinkets. Mick and Mack maneuvered through the crowd, their sharp eyes scanning for anything out of place. They spotted their man near a battered delivery truck. He was wiry, with a nervous energy that set him apart from the casual chaos of the market. The crates he was unloading bore the faint Eaton's logo. Looks like Santa's been doing a little extra work, Mac said dryly. The man froze, his eyes darting between the detectives and the back of the truck. Without warning, he bolted in the maze of stalls. Every time, Mick muttered, spotting a teenager's bicycle leaning against a lamppost. With a quick wave of reassurance, he commandeered the bike, pedaling after the suspect. Mac gave chase on foot, weaving through the market with surprising agility. Vendors shouted in protest as the fleeing man upset carts and scattered goods. Mick's squeaky bike and Mac's shouts drew laughter from onlookers, adding a slapstick element to the pursuit. The chase ended in a snowbank, where Mick tackled the man with a practiced ease. Let's talk about your side hustle, he said, pinning the suspect's arms. I don't know anything, the man stammered, his breath visible in the cold air. A guy paid me to move those crates, said they were legit. Back at headquarters, the suspect's confession led them to Harold Harry Marlowe, a former actor who had once played Santa at Eaton's. After being let go for petty theft, he had fallen on hard times. Mick and Mack tracked him to a rundown shed near the beaches. Inside, the scene was almost surreal. Harry, dressed in a threadbare Santa suit, sat amid a chaotic pile of toys. He looked up as the detectives entered, his face a mixture of guilt and defiance. It's not what it looks like, Harry exclaimed. You mean it's not a shed full of stolen toys? Mac replied, folding his arms. Harry sighed, slumping against a crate. All right, it's exactly what it looks like. But I wasn't going to sell them. I was going to hand them out to kids who really need them. You know, the ones who don't have rich folks sending them train sets and fancy dolls. Mick exchanged a glance with Mac. Harry, those kids at the hospital are counting on these toys. You can't just take matters into your own hands. Harry looked down at his scuffed boots. I just wanted to make a difference. Guess I messed that up too. On Christmas Eve, Mick and Mack arrived at the Victoria Hospital for Sick Children with the recovered toys. Harry, now wearing a proper Santa suit provided by Eaton's, handed out gifts under the watchful eyes of the hospital's staff. The children's laughter filled the air, a sound so pure it melted even Harry's guilt. Gwyn Jocko Thomas, the ever-present crime reporter, snapped photos from the corner. Now this is a headline. Santa saves Christmas with a little help from Toronto's finest. You boys don't mind some good press, do you? Back at Rosie's bar that evening, Mick and Mack raised a toast. To the case of the missing toys, Mick said, clinking his glass against Mack's. And to the strangest Santa we've ever met, Mack added. Rosie smirked as she set down another round. Next one's on me. Don't get used to it. Outside, the snow fell gently, blanketing the city in quiet beauty. For now all was calm in Toronto, at least until the next case. Thank you for listening to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's true crime podcast. Available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Subscribe to Ontario Cold Cases today so you never miss an episode. Please share your thoughts and questions in the comments.